I'm Sandra Gesing. I'm the PI of the Center of Excellence for Science Gateways. So you are in the SGX3 webinar series, our first one in 2026. And we are proud and happy to have Amit Charosia here, who is a long-term friend of Science Gateways. And with that, I give it to Amit and take it away.
All right. Well, thank you, Sandra. Happy to be presenting here. Thanks for the opportunity to share this project. Greetings, everyone. My name is Amit Chaurasia. I am a Chief Research Data Architect at the Office of Advanced Research Computing at UCLA. And I'll be talking about the Quakeworx project today. So let's jump in. So the Quakeworx project is actually NSF's funded via the NSF's CSSI program, and it has 4 institutions as partners, 5 actually now. I was at UCSD earlier, but now I'm at UCLA, so it's 5 institutions. So we have partners at USC, which is the lead institution, UCSD, and now UCLA. And the entire project is actually serving the seismology community, which is organized as SCEC, or Statewide California Earthquake Center. It's kind of interesting, even though the name has a state in the its acronym. Actually, the participation goes well beyond the state boundaries, national and international collaboration. So SCEC is a forum where seismologists around the world convene and share their research and findings and so forth. So this particular gateway is actually targeting that community of researchers, but in addition, it's also targeting other folks in federal agencies like USGS and other people who are interested in understanding the earthquake hazard. So I think this, if you are familiar with Science Gateway, the big picture is very, very similar. The idea is to build a community infrastructure that provides high quality curated software tools, high quality data that is integrated with computing, where these software tools can run for simulation, modeling, analysis, and forecasts and things like that. Not sure if my audio is coming okay. There is seems like a helicopter crossing where I am right now.
Yeah, we hear it. It makes it a little bit dramatic, but that's we still can hear you. We still can hear you.
All right. Well,
is that an earthquake?
Yeah, it's kind of waning. Yeah, so the idea is to build this common community cyber infrastructure to provide, well curated set of software tools, data, which are integrated with the computing resources and provide collaborative aspects as well. And then provides an avenue for scholarly publishing through, fair and open publishing principles, essentially. And the goal for the project is essentially to reduce the barriers for either access to software or to the hardware or to compute, and provide that and make it available to the broadest community as possible. And then by doing so, catalyze and empower the community to use and reuse these tools and share the results of these so they can be further investigated, used, and disseminated within the community. I think in this case there is also a transition path for some of these products actually to get translated into different sectors. The FEMA, for example, makes use of hazard maps and things like that, and so does USGS, and so do the counties and so forth. So the societal aspect for this sort of infrastructure goes beyond just research. There is a strong connection to understanding hazard at different levels on the government side as well. Again, the idea is that having such an infrastructure allows us to scale and make these things available at many levels. So scale is again from undergrads to grads to postdocs, scientists, and so forth, and staff, but also the number of institutions and number of people that can be served, and also the kind of resources that can be integrated here, they can also scale. And then ultimately, the goal for the project is to provide catalyze advances in rupture forecast modeling and simulation modeling, provide a way to bring the latest physics models for earthquake simulations and hazard estimation and make them available to the community. So again, the context here is these tools exist, but they are not very easy to use, and they are not very easy to set up, and they're not very easy to compute upon. So the idea is to bring these things together in a platform where all that work has already been done by the teams who are either building the tools or a set of research or cyber infrastructure experts who can help kind of move these things from more from a research to a translation point of view where they can be used very easily. So if you want to look at a little bit more on a structured way of the project, the core is built around, building the science gateway, which has, a notion of apps, data, publications, workspaces, login, so forth, and integrated compute. But I think the real crux of the platform is all these science tools. And so there are these next generation earthquake simulation tools. I'll talk briefly about them later, but there are several state-of-the-art simulation and modeling tools. They can span from running from a Jupyter notebook, and they can actually run at exascale machines as well. In fact, just last month or last month, one of the co-PIs was a part of the team that won the Gordon Bell Prize at the supercomputing conference last year. So in fact, that tool is planned to be available at Quakeworx at some point. So those, the span is huge. You can be running, a single core job with a little bit of memory for a few hours, to larger scale simulation that run on hundreds of cores or thousands or hundreds of thousands of cores for a very long time. In addition to these first principle methods, the tools that are developed with first principles, there is a new class of emerging tools coming from the machine learning side, where the methods are employing the deep learning aspects, and those tools are also kind of becoming very relevant for the research community to examine if those methods could be used in certain areas, and could they be used to advance the state of knowledge, basically. And then you have a set of analysis and visualization tools that complement all the simulation and modeling tools to kind of provide a way for synthesizing insights about what the simulations produce as raw data. So the idea is we create these applications along with the data. Data is inherently a big part of these tool sets. That how do you create these inputs that these simulations can actually use, and then do your simulation and modeling work. So the data preparation aspect can get very, very technical and can be very detailed. And the idea is those kind of tools can also be made available through the gateway. And there are already several tools that are available, and the use of that is non-trivial. And then the idea is, once these tools are available or the platform is available to the community, allow the community to contribute these tools, not just the curated tools, but others who can bring these tools perhaps for usage in their own research groups or in their classrooms and so forth. And then again, another component for the project is engaging with the community, communicating what is being done, how where the platform is, where the tools are, and then engage them through various channels. And so I think if you want to kind of look at the core capabilities of the gateways, is essentially applications and pipelines and the data, and then the computational aspect that does the job management from launching the job to kind of processing it and recording that provenance of what was used to compute all that, and then run it on the resource compute resource that makes sense for that kind of particular tools or tool sets, and then finally make the data available to the researchers. In addition to that, there is an aspect of publishing that, the gateway itself can serve as a publishing platform, possibly in a complementary sense that if your paper is published in a journal or something like that, many of the artifacts that underpin that paper can be potentially published here. So if there was a simulation that was used on the gateway, it can be cited here as a living citable object, and some of the inputs can also be staged here, so others can potentially build upon that work, either to assess it or to kind of advance it, and so forth. I already touched upon the community contributions, so allowing the community to bring applications and share them, and then build some access controls where the applications or the data needs to be restricted to a few researchers or a single researchers versus shared with the community. And providing an easy way for people to actually get accounts on the system. That's already done today. You can log on with your institutional identity provider, and there is really very little friction there at this point. So that's already in place. So here is kind of a quick snapshot of some of the tools that are available. There's the SeisSol tool, which is essentially does wave propagation for earthquake modeling. You provide a signature earthquake that, hey, this is what it looks like, this is the characteristics of the input, and it basically will use that earthquake signature to kind of do the wave propagation across a domain that you specify. And you can basically characterize that if certain scenario earthquakes happen in some areas, what is the impact of it through the duration of earthquake. Tandem also does kind of a similar earthquake modeling, and USERF ETAS does aftershock modeling for earthquakes that are happening in California. And I think this is actually used more on the operational side. Anytime there is a 4.5 magnitude earthquake in California or offshore of California, that earthquake is the signature of that earthquake is kind of fed into this tool to kind of forecast what is the chance that another quake may happen in next 48 hours. And that forecast is actually processed, used by USGS to kind of estimate that. So, California has hundreds of earthquakes every day on the lower order of magnitude, sometimes even thousands. Some of these can cross 4.5 magnitude. Most of them are small. And so you really want to keep an eye on what's happening on a larger scale. Could those be building up to a larger quake? And if so, which regions are the ones that potentially could be affected? So this kind of tool is already kind of available on Quakeworx, and some people are starting to use this as well. I'm not going to go into details about the other applications, but essentially you get the idea. And I briefly mentioned, the machine learning stuff is also kind of becoming relevant. So there is a neural network based QuakeNN tool that's also available that is again looking at machine learning aspects to kind of do some inverse problems in earthquake dynamics and so forth. From an operational point of view, usage point of view, to kind of give you a flavor of what does that look like. So the app creation, as you go to the login and go to the website, if you have the privilege to kind of create an app, then you can just invoke a form to create a new application. You choose what kind of application it is, whether it's an interactive application, either a web application or a graphical application, or just a plain old executable, whether that's a compiled or script, it doesn't really matter. You provide some metadata about it, the name, versioning, and so forth, and then you provide the configuration for it, that what input does it take. Once you kind of set up the environment, you have an opportunity to build your user interface using a user interface. that allows you to enter the parameters. And I'll give you a flavor of this in a moment. In action, once you have all that set up, you basically test your application. If it looks satisfactory, you can go and add more metadata about the application, and attributions. And then eventually, if it makes sense, these applications can be published on the gateway platform itself, so it becomes a citable object. And depending on the policies, we are still kind of working through that. There could be a review process to kind of make the application widely available on the gateway, and through that, administrative review process, the app can then be published. So that's kind of the big picture. This whole thing is fairly configurable, and we have tuned it. We are tuning it to the Quakeworx community's needs. Similar idea exists for publication. You select a publication, choose the type of publication it is, provide the metadata, provide, upload any data that's associated with the publication, provide the metadata artifacts for FAIR, version, license, persistent ID, and so forth. You preview it, and then there is an editorial process that just makes sure that you have entered all the information adequately for the platform to accept, and then you publish it basically. So this review process is unlike the peer review process. It's more of editorial in nature, but it can be more detailed. But that's determined by the Science Gateway. So Quakeworx project will determine what level of review that is deemed adequate for publication. But generally, the bar is not as high as the peer review in this kind of scenario. So I think with that, let me kind of give you a flavor of what we have currently kind of in place and where we are with the project. So I'm going to switch over and share my browser. And by the way, feel free to ask any questions as they come along. We can keep this fairly interactive. It's not a very large group today. Let's see. Okay, so I need to get something else going here. So for some reason, I don't see my browser window in the Share tab. Let me figure that out. Okay, there we go. All right, are you folks able to see my web browser?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Is the font okay? Can increase it a little bit. Is that better?
That is better, yes.
Okay, all right. Let me increase it a little bit more. How about that?
That looks good.
Okay, good. So I'm gonna move this thing away. So once you are logged in to the gateway, you essentially come up to a page like this. On the left, there is a sidebar, which is where most of the action is essentially. If you see, on the left sidebar, there is a set of menus, and these menus are dependent on what kind of access level you have, and some of these may or may not be available for regular user. I thought somebody raised a hand.
I was just going to ask why you need to sign in, but I think you just answered that question, that there's different levels of access.
Yeah. And I think different levels of access, but more importantly, when you run compute, remember we are allowing people to execute different applications. So we really do need to know who that run belongs to, who's computing, and where the data lives. So you really need authentication. But of course, there is a public component that's available. You can view all the public applications. You just won't be able to launch them on the public side. So once you're logged in, you have the ability to launch them. So that's a great question.
Yeah, sorry, Amit, following up on that. So you give then on the public side some examples what the simulations can deliver, and yeah,
Uh,
that would be great to see. But what you
yeah,
have, yeah.
yeah, I think that's a good question. So let's just kind of look at it. So I'm logged out right now. So if you go, this is again a website, basically appears as a website. And if you go to apps, you see a list of all apps or curated apps. I'm going to click on curated apps. And so you see that, we have a bunch of apps here. And if you try to click launch, it's going to complain that you are not logged in, right? So you really need to be logged in. But if you go and view any of these apps, so let's go and look at, I think let's go and look at eTask or Tandem. You can look at Tandem. Let's look at Tandem. So the Tandem application then provides the overview about what this application is about, what it does, and so you can see a kind of an overview for that. And so we are working a little bit more about it, that we will also have a usage kind of documentation that's also going to be public, that what do you need to do to use it, right? So all the applications have you could call these as landing pages for each applications, and they can be whatever that application chose to put in there. So they will be very, very different for what they are trying to do. But the idea is provide this meta information about each application. So these are available publicly if the application is public, right? If the application is private, then obviously it's not going to show up. And so if we look at all applications, same idea. And then we are also working on a variety of applications that we are planning to. I think some of these are already here. So that's this page is a little outdated. Okay, so once if let me log in. So I already have a local account, so I'll log. Sorry.
Sorry, interrupting. Since you said it's interactive, so Lloyd, someone had a question here.
Okay.
Lloyd, how would you suggest to the general public access Quakeworx, and what do you recommend is going to be the most beneficial if someone wants to get into the topic?
Yeah. So the Science Gateway is actually widely open, and the way we have integrated it is we have a single sign-on through Globus. If you do that, it allows you to log into the gateway from over 2,000 research institutions around the world. Now, in case you are not part of one of those institutions, you can submit a ticket, and we can create an account. In fact, just last week, some emergency county manager from some county requested an account because those counties don't have a single sign-on. So it's broadly available. Anyone in the academic environment should be able to log in. Most institutions that I'm aware of, I think about 900 institutions in US already have part of the in common, and it kind of funnels up, and it's available through single sign-on. In terms of at this point, I think it's the website serves as a good resource, the public website, if this is something that may be of interest to you, right? If it's not, I mean, then that's going to be the case. But if this should be a topic that may be of interest, again, these tools are fairly advanced. You do need to know certain things, or you do need to be coached in some form or fashion to be able to use these tools. So if a student is a part of a class which is talking about some of these things, they can use these tools because it's paired with instruction. I think at this point, I think computational experts can potentially figure out some of these tools with some level of effort. But yeah, I mean these are all domain specific tools, so you do need some background to be able to use it. So in that sense, it's not for citizen scientists, if you will, right? It is a domain focused gateway, unless they have a background in it, right? So I'm going to go log in, and feel free to log in if you guys like to kind of take a more hands-on look, and you can use a single sign-on. I already have a different account, so I'm going to log in as an administrator. So on the left side, you see, I have my jobs. These are some of the jobs that I have run in the past, so I have a history of that. I can clone these jobs, so I don't have to set up those parameters again and rerun them. or I can go and view what I was doing at that time. And the main thing we would want to do at this point is essentially go to apps and look at curated apps. And I'm going to open up a couple of apps here to kind of give you a flavor of this. So let's take a look at, I want to look at Tandem actually. So I'm going to open Tandem app. Tandem. So I'm going to go and look at Tandem. So this brings us to the same landing page that we saw when we are not logged in. And then I'm going to go and launch the app. When I launch an app, essentially I get a web form. It provides me various options that the app contributor has enabled. And so there are, 2D, 3D, and there is one more option there. And you specify a name. You need to have a configuration file in a particular format, which this tool kind of accepts. Then they have a bunch of other options of, how to use the greens function, whether you upload it or it will auto-generate it based on your input. Then it requires a mesh file on which it will run the earthquake simulation. It requires some other files. You'll upload all these things. You certainly need all these files. So there's quite a bit of stuff you really need to know to be able to use these things, or somebody needs to provide these files to you. So one of the things which we are working on is to create an example set, which is going to be available here, which people can play around with these applications at a small scale. So once you have entered all these parameters, many of all these things are validated. So if you enter something which the program is not accepting and we have the validation rule for it, it's going to tell the user that, hey, something is off here, it needs to be fixed. So, and then you select a system that's paired with this application and it's going to run there. In this case, it's going to run on the Expanse cluster at the San Diego Supercomputer Center, but the idea is these applications can be paired at different resources. So right now, for example, we are integrating the Delta cluster at National Center for Supercomputing Applications and the Stampede 3 cluster at the Texas Advanced Computing Center. We also have a host at AWS. So the idea is that all these tools or computing platforms are integrated behind the scenes. The users don't really need to worry about that integration unless they want to bring in some other compute resource and integrate that. That's also possible. So that's one kind of application. And by the way, behind the scenes, Tandem is a MPI application, so it will run on multiple cores and multiple nodes, and it can consume quite a bit of compute time. And it can run on one core and some memory at the smallest footprint. So it can scale quite a bit depending on what it is that the user is trying to do. Here is another application. These are so the first one was a batch application or a command line application. You basically set it, run, and launch it, and it's going to run. There's no human interaction required till the job finishes. Again, here is another application. It has few choices. Then you bring in your mesh file and few other files that this program requires. And then you set the resources, whether you want to run on one node, whether you want to run on how many cores you want to use. So some defaults are provided by the app contributor, but again, depending on what you are trying to do, you will change these resources to run this job. This is also an MPI application, so it can consume quite a bit of resources. Here is the forecast, earthquake forecast application. And so this is geared for tutorial. I know Chunhan, if you're around, if you can give me an event ID, maybe I can launch it. Do you happen to have an event ID? I don't have one right now. Again, you specify what parameters you want here, how to create these, what kind of scenarios you are trying to compute. And you set up those parameters. Again, they go through some validation, and then you launch the job, and it runs and produces the output. So I see a hand again raised there.
Yeah, would there be any negative to just, there's some defaults provided here, so having a default event ID?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think it used to be there. I think it got changed. So yeah, I think we'll take that as a feedback, Chunhan. I think that's a good point. Maybe we can have some. I think here basically, except the event ID, everything is set up. So you're absolutely right. We had this like this, and I think something changed as the application evolved a little bit. So you should
or
be able
even
to
a
confirm it.
drop down or something, you know.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's a great suggestion. Yeah, so in this case, this is a distributed app. It basically will run a copy of it many times, depending on how many resources you make available. So the minimum number is 1 core. And then if you want to run it on more cores, you can, and it will just create copies of it, and it will do that. So it is a massively distributed application which can scale the amount of resources that's available. What it is, it basically divides the work into many pieces, and then just runs that job either as a serial job or as kind of it's still serial but in multiple copies. Sandra.
Yes, there is a question also in the chat again. I just wanted to point you to it, and maybe the one who wrote it would like to speak up.
Oh yeah. Hi, Jayogi. Sorry, I don't know if I'm getting your name correctly, but I think that's what I recall. You wanna ask, or I can actually just state the question. So the question is, there are administrators for Quakeworx and the OneSciencePlace project that host the systems or whatever it is that is needed for new applications to be available and on the Quakeworx. Okay, so I think this is a great question. So I think maybe I would reframe the question as, how is all this put together, and who maintains it, and what's the responsibility kind of between different people. So so the Quakeworx gateway is like I shared, that it's a partnership between 4 institutions, and each team has different responsibility. So the team that I represents the cyber infrastructure. So we manage the cyber infrastructure or the gateway component. Then the science teams actually maintain and manage the curation of application, and they work closely with us to curate those applications, test the gateway, develop interfaces. So we are working with the science teams to actually deploy this application. So the application management, once it's deployed, we work with the science teams to deploy them. But essentially, the science teams are taking that responsibility to maintain these applications. And I think what happens on the research side is that their applications are not static. They change over time, right? Every 6 months or a year, there may be new versions and new things like that. And then we work with them to kind of deploy. Or I think at this point, more or less things are streamlined, and the researchers can themselves cut a new version. It's fairly easy to cut a new version. They go and compile their application on the cluster. On the website, they clone a form and basically set it as a new version, and that becomes the default. So I think it's a shared responsibility between the cyber infrastructure team and the science team to kind of make these tools available. I hope that kind of answers the question. And I think there are some general applications like Jupyter or Linux desktop or things like that the gateway team maintains. So the scientists don't have to worry about that aspect.
Thank you for the answer.
Yeah.
I'm just afraid of that if I am using a gateway, it's kind of adding up one more layer for me to concern how to have to take care of the software, anything that installed. Now I'm just support one cluster. And I need to cooperate with the sysadmins, just one layer. But if I maintain a gateway, and then I have to collaborate with the platform as well as the host machine.
Right.
The sysadmins.
Right.
So it's all like add one more layer.
Yeah, so I think there are trade-offs, right? The gateway allows you to scale,
Yeah,
and
I
if
just
that,
want to
if,
confirm my understanding of
yeah,
this whole architecture is correct.
right.
Yeah,
So
thank you for
yeah,
the explanation.
yeah, great. And George has a question as well. In this case, do the science program team set an API that cyber infrastructure uses as a spec? So George, I think there are different applications. These applications are, most of these applications either are an executable, they are compiled, or they are in a form of a container, either a Docker container or a Singularity container. And so we deploy them based on what they are. I think it's possible to deploy API-oriented applications, but I think at this point, Quakeworx project does not have something like that. I think there's one special application that we are working on, but it's that, I mean, once you get into an API sort of aspect, that's a different kind of application, right? So it's possible to deploy those, but I think it depends on the application. So I think if you want to kind of think about it from a non-specific point of view, I think your application, if it's in a form of a script or a compiled application or a container, they can be easily deployed, rather easily deployed with the current infrastructure. Once you go into the API side, then it's very specific, and then we need to look at what it is that the application needs and where it would run and what that means.
Thanks for sharing. I didn't know if your boundary ended behind this website or if there was more behind it. So it sounds like you're administering the executables on their runtimes
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well
So,
as the web page.
yeah. It's a full integration, right? So it looks like a website, but there is a fairly detailed integration behind the scenes. Yeah, and later on I can just share you a high level architecture, what's going on behind the scenes, so that will probably give you a better sense of how the mechanics kind of work, at least at the high level.
Thanks.
Yeah, great questions, folks. Um, uh, so I think we got a flavor of applications. I'm not going to spend too much time, but I'll just give you a flavor of this thing on this thing. So here is the build interface, right? So if you see all the fields you saw, they were actually configured through this user interface. And if I go and say add an element, we have graphical elements available with which you can we can compose different kinds of application what they need. So we have commonly used elements that will feed into a program as an argument. Those are available as a visual element, and you basically select those and chain them up and order them how you see fit, set up the right parameters, and then that generates the user interface. So we have specified these things.
Sorry, what does OSP stand for?
OSP is OneSciencePlace, the short
Right,
form for that.
okay.
Yeah. So this is the user interface that's got generated by configuring all that, things. So if I go to the build here, you can build this visually, but you can also, learn a little bit of YAML, how these things are created, and you can just build this interface through YAML as well. So this is fairly detailed. If I click on any of these, you'd see that, you can specify a great deal of stuff. You can have help noted here. You can have more descriptions about it. You can do some validation here. You can display these things. You can style these things. So it's fairly detailed. And the idea here is that we can also make many of these things accessible on the web. So these things can be very, very detailed, but they don't have to be. So each element has lots of properties that can be just edited in a web form, and once you set them up and order them up, this thing will automatically generate that YAML. And if you want to have many of these things, you can do that. So we had some complex applications which we integrated, which had over 100 parameters. And all those parameters, some of those parameters changed based on what you selected. So we were able to kind of build that kind of interface using these stock elements. And so I think so far we have found the number of stock elements we have is fairly comprehensive. But if there is a need for doing something different, we can build those elements as well. So, I think, it allows us to do this visual building of these, these forms without writing code, basically. And then, there's a test element as well. So there's a whole suite of stuff which is built in behind the scenes that allows you to kind of do these things fairly easily. So Chunhan just provided me an ID. I'm going to just see if I can run it. So here is an ID. And I'm going to just leave everything as default and just run it. And so once you run an application, you see that it's trying to launch the application. It is going to go and talk to the Expanse cluster. It will process the input. It will then set it, put it in the Expanse queue. Looks like it's already running, which is fantastic. And at any time you can kill the job if something was off. And then once it finishes, it will advance to the next state and kind of show it's finished. So we leave this, and then maybe we can revisit this page. It'll take a couple minutes for it to run through. Another aspect I want to quickly touch upon and then go back to the presentation so that make sure we cover most of the things here. If you look here, these systems are the systems that we have integrated with Quakeworx so far. So you'd see here, you'd see there is an Expanse cluster is integrated. There is an AWS host that's integrated. And we have different accounts for different things, and we are working on a couple other systems. So the idea is that we can integrate more than one resource with the gateway and deploy the same applications or different applications onto each system and then make them available through this interface. And again, the publication, I'll just briefly touch upon it and just give you I don't know if we have any here. We don't have one here, but just these are kind of test publications. This is we are still in early user mode, so we don't have formal publication at this point, but just to kind of give you a flavor of this, essentially you create a publication and you provide various elements that are part of your publication and share that. So if you have data, you can drag and drop your data here, and it's going to be available here. If I edit it, you can kind of essentially see it's a simple web form with lots of fields. So it's very structured. It has an option to provide a description, provide a feature image. You can add your authors. You can look up your authors using your ORCID ID if you have one. Then you can provide other metadata like location, if that makes sense. We have an ability to mint a DOI or a handle or an arc. So we can, if you want to create a new identifier, we can do that. Or if you have an existing one, you can put it there. And it can add that. We have a notion of embargo that we can have, that the result should be embargoed until some point. You can add your sponsors who sponsored the work, and then if there are any specific rights that you want to kind of mention, you can mention the publisher and so forth. So again, fairly detailed. All these things are customizable to a great deal. They can be removed, they can be added. The metadata is fully configurable. And it can be fairly detailed, and here we are customizing it for the needs for the Quakeworx gateway. So this is still kind of work in progress. We hope to finish this sometime this year, and so we'll have a more kind of a more customized view of this thing available later. Again, if you're a manager, you can see all the application, all the jobs that are running, all kinds of other stuff. So if you're so again, Jayogi asked that what this is again a shared responsibility. So if there is a stakeholder who needs to see this stuff, they have the manager access to the system, and they can see many things and that they need to care about or they need to keep an eye on. So these things are available in the platform today, and we are continuing to refine these so we can provide kind of high-level view of these kind of things to the PIs or the community manager to see what's happening on the system. So again, all other things are more or less kind of in the same sidebar. You have a notion of create. You can create an application, system, publication. And depending on who you are, you will see fewer or more choices. So all this is very dynamic. It knows who you are, what privileges you have, and it will show you those options accordingly. So let's see if I can jump back to the slides here. Here we go. All right. Can you folks see the slides again?
Yes, we see that.
Okay, perfect. All right. So I think George was asking about what's happening behind the scenes. So here is kind of a high-level overview of the architecture. Quakeworx Science Gateway is built on a platform called OneSciencePlace. That OneSciencePlace platform is a multi-tenant platform. Quakeworx is one of the tenants on that platform. And the tenancy basically is in form of a website. That's the way to kind of think about it. That the website which you are seeing is essentially one of the tenants on OneSciencePlace platform. Now, the way this whole thing kind of is architected is that all these sites run on a host or multiple hosts. There is a reverse proxy that kind of moves the traffic. If you go to, Quakeworx, it will route you to the Quakeworx, container essentially, which the website is created using the Drupal content management system. It has its own database server and web configuration and so forth. So each site is independent and it's fully isolated with other tenants basically. And then it integrates with other third-party services like Globus or DOI or Arc and others, and some ticketing system. We are evaluating Jira Service Desk, and earlier we integrated Zendesk, so it's all configurable. So this is kind of the user-facing part, if you will. And then we have something which we call satellite proxy. So if you run a Jupyter notebook, it will basically do all the SSH tunneling and all that stuff behind the scenes. And so all you do is click on a launch button and you get a web browser, right? So there's behind the scenes, it's doing all the work by launch when the job is launched on a compute host somewhere. It bridges that environment and makes it available to the web browser. So that plumbing takes care of that. And on the right side, you would see is, you'd see as TAPIS primary site. We are deploying a software a system called TAPIS. This TAPIS is developed at the Texas Advanced Computing Center. And we have been collaborating with them for a very long time. And this TAPIS essentially is, think of it as TAPIS is the job management system. So we integrate TAPIS very deeply. So anything which you're seeing on front end, the application that we defined on the front end actually is an application in TAPIS. And TAPIS is all API driven, so we can expose those APIs as well. So if there is a need to not use the user interface, you can actually interact with all the programs through an API. And so TAPIS is a set of services that run on Kubernetes cluster. So this is the shared part. This is the same thing which every tenant uses, and it has logical separation between each tenants, and it does manage that isolation in a secure way. By the way, TAPIS was audited by the Trusted CI initiative a couple of years back. So, and it's in production at TAC, and we run our own instance of TAPIS, so we have full observability into the platform, and so we run a set of services from TAPIS. And so TAPIS integrates any system we define on the front end becomes a TAPIS system. Any application we say run it on this system gets kind of managed and integrated. It ties to this TAPIS system. So there is a one-to-one relationship between most of the things that you see on the front end with the TAPIS equivalent behind the scenes. And the user generally doesn't need to know unless they are wanting to do something super advanced. This is essentially running in the back end, and it will orchestrate your compute and data between resources and will basically run the job, monitor the job, and talk to the front end when the jobs are either failed or whatever their state is. It will indicate, and those would be available on the front end. And I already talked about the satellite proxy that's used for interactive workloads. So let's say if you're running MATLAB, you run a VNC, a container, or an image. That container and image gets piped to satellite proxy, which then proxies it to HTTPS and makes it available onto the web browser. So there's quite a few pieces here, but the OneSciencePlace team manages all these orchestration in collaboration with TAC. We run TAPIS, and from a science gateway point of view or from a portal and other point of view, we work with the stakeholders to kind of make this environment available. And we share some of the responsibility. We manage the system and the software associated with the cyber infrastructure. And in terms of application, that's going to be a collaboration with the science gateway teams or other resource provider on what they're trying to do. So hopefully that kind of gives you a flavor of what's going on behind the scene. You can think of this as a managed service if you like to think it that way. Of course, many of the components are open source, but it does require a great deal of expertise to marshal them and run them. So you want to think about that if you want to self-host these kind of services yourself. In terms of project, we have a fairly credible platform at this point. We are right now in early user mode. We have around 11 state-of-the-art applications that we are testing with a variety of users. We have all kinds of applications, batch, interactive, and so forth. We are currently working on strong data management aspects as well. And you already saw we have the single sign-on capability up and live. Yes. I talked about these applications. Some of the applications have some data which is being curated on per application basis. You saw kind of a flavor of what the user experience looks like. When you log in, you have access to the various capabilities based on your privilege level, and that is provided by the platform. Each job that is run has provenance tag tracking built in. So if you set, you had application which had this input file or that input file and some parameters you set, all that is tracked by the system, and you can rerun those jobs again. And then later on, we are thinking that we should be able to publish the chain, basically as a citable object. So that's feasible. I think we have quite a bit of work which we want to do to polish the platform before we get to that sort of thing. But I think that's totally in the realm of possibility. I mentioned that we can deploy applications currently, either they are Singularity or Docker, or they can be compiled binaries or even scripts. And I think currently we only support Linux operating system. In terms of community engagement, we had a very, very strong workshop last year. We thought that we would want to get 20 people, and we got an overwhelming response. We had like over 150 applications from 16 countries. We expanded the workshop to 65 researchers. And so we had a very successful 4-day workshop, each half day, where these were targeted on different aspects of the scholarly cycle, and a couple of them focused heavily on the science applications for earthquake community, and so that workshop was very well received. And then we also had a hackathon for developing one of the tools last year. And there's a fairly large group, and there's quite a bit of scholarly outputs that the team has generated with papers, presentations, and things like that. And we are continuing to do strong outreach for the project. And so the next goal for our project is to basically launch Quakeworx Gateway in production, probably before summer. And then again, host a variety of workshops and things like that to kind of engage the community, and then also fully implement the fair publishing options. I think most of them are already in place. We want to basically work on refining a little bit of a user interface so that it's very, very smooth to kind of do those kind of things, and then enable contributed apps for the community. And so here's the project team. It's a collaborative project. I was one of the PIs. I I actually handed that over to Alice, and I'll basically swap my role as a co-PI going forward as I move to UCLA. And then we have a very big team, lots of students, staff, scientists, and professors are part of the team, and they are testing the platform, building the application. So a lot of cutting edge work is kind of coming in. Chun Hui and Napat, who you see, they just graduated last week. They are newly minted doctors, and they have contributed a couple of tools that are available here. So it's not only the established tools that are coming to Quakeworx, it's also some of the new and exciting stuff is also kind of making part of the Quakeworx gateway. And then we have several team members who were at SDSC who kind of provided incredible support in kind of building this platform, the Quakeworx Science Gateway. So it originated at SDSC, and now it's continuing to have that partnership going forward, and it's continuing to evolve, and more people are getting kind of involved with the project. So I want to acknowledge NSF for funding the project, and also SCEC that continues to fund the project as well. And just a quick mention of OneSciencePlace. I mentioned this. This is a new platform for building science gateways, portals, and things like that. And the idea is that we can create these instances at different scale. You saw Science Gateway is probably the highest scale. It's a national scale, but it doesn't have to be like that. It can be an institutional scale, department scale, even a research group scale. So these things can be different instances of OneSciencePlace can be created for catering different kind of needs, and it's highly composable. So this platform is kind of maturing, and we are continuing to make strong improvements there, and you'll see more use cases kind of come live later this year on this platform. And so, that's kind of a quick overview of the project. And if you're interested, those are the website and the contact information. Again, happy to field any questions. I don't know how we are doing on time.
So we are at exactly the full hour.
Perfect. Barely. All right.
But you had a lot of questions in between.
Yes.
So just being also mindful of, that people might have to leave. So, but yeah, thank you very much for the talk, and also the live demo and presentation. That is always, it did work out. Live demo is always, which can be hard, and you definitely, reach out to Amit if you have more questions. I don't know whether he still has a minute or two if you have questions now.
I'm happy to stick around if if there are questions. Yeah.
If there are questions now, but I think most people already asked in between since you invited for interaction. So
yeah, thank you, folks. Great to hear the feedback. Yeah, I'm available offline. Please feel free to reach out. In fact, you can reach out to any one of us. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for kicking off our SGX3 webinar series for 2026. And looking forward to an energetic year. And thanks everyone for joining.
Perfect. Sandra, so before we adjourn, is there a plan to kind of share these slides and make them available, or how does that work?
Yes, so we will make the video available, and if you send this to Janae, she will link then also the slides to the video.
Okay, perfect. I think that's excellent. Well, again, thanks again for joining and the opportunity to share this work. Looking forward to kind of continue to be engaged with the Science Gateways community. And if there are any questions, again, we are available.